He saw. There was a demon with big fat wings and cloven hooves. Its skin was dark and scaly, and its hands had giant talons. Jeannie just snickered at this description. The grandmother unlocked the door, and there was Azura, crying hysterically. Don't go! Don't go! Please don't go! No, please don't go! Don't go! Don't go! Don't go! Please don't go! The moment he saw this, the priest dropped his Bible and rosary and closed the door. That's no demon. That's a mancha chico. A what? It is a creature that is born from a demon and cursed without love. They seek out mortals to love them and attach themselves to those who show them kindness. Jeannie laughed.
I hate ads.
Get your butt in the game in Fabletics. At Fabletics, we're known for leggings that look as good.
No, I'm not a girl. I don't care.
Jeannie laughed. This was absolutely ridiculous. When they fall in love with a human, they truly care for them and keep them safe, but for a price. In return for their devotion, the Mancha Chico will gain possession of the human soul in the afterlife. We have to save her. The priest re-entered the bedroom and said a prayer. When he came out of the room, Jeannie saw Azura sleeping peacefully in her bed. A few days later, Jeannie was about to run some errands, and Azura stopped her. Don't leave. But sweetie, I need to buy us some. Please! Jeannie was a little freaked out by how sincere her daughter was, so she stayed home. Later that day, when they were watching the news, they learned that there was an active shooter at the nearby mall. The mall that Jeannie was going to go to. Why did you make me stay home? Lisa told me to tell you. He doesn't want me to be sad, so he will help me keep you safe. There were multiple instances like this when Azura would tell her mother to avoid a certain area, only to later discover that it could have saved her life. And Jeannie wasn't the only one who was experiencing good luck. Azura's school bullies had stopped picking on her and began apologizing to her and giving her gifts. Azura was hit by a car on the sidewalk and flown into a gutter, but walked away without a scratch. Azura's little sister was diagnosed with a terrible skin disease, only to have it completely healed a few weeks later. To Jeannie, it was all just good luck. But according to Azura, this was all because of Cheliso, her demon. Years had gone by, and Azura was now 15 years old. Jeannie found it a little odd that her daughter had never talked about any school crushes or shown any interest in dating, so she decided to talk to her daughter. You know, when I was your age, I couldn't stop talking about boys. Is there anyone you like at your school? You can tell me. I have Cheliso. He says I'm his one and only. I would be wrong to leave him when he's been so good to me. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama? Jeannie did not like that response. She thought that her daughter had finally grown out of this ridiculous phase, and she couldn't stand these lies anymore. Enough, Azura, enough with Cheliso. He isn't real. I don't ever want to hear about Cheliso again. You understand? Jeannie stormed out of the room, leaving Azura in tears. After she had cooled down, Jeannie decided to apologize to her daughter. She entered her bedroom and froze. There was Azura, curled up on her bed, but in the lap of a giant demon. He looked just as Azura's grandmother had described years ago. Jeannie couldn't believe what she saw, but there he was. Cheliso was real. Azura is now 22 years old and only occasionally mentions Cheliso. And Jeannie will remind her that Cheliso plans to take her soul in the afterlife. And you okay with that? Of course. Hasn't he been good to us, Mama?
Jesus Christ, it's creepy.
A very special thank you to Jeannie, Azura, and Cheliso, who, according to Azura, is a fan of Snarled.
Oh. So apparently a demon is a fan of Snarled.
Vassal was 18 when he was sent for 2 years of military service, starting in 1982. He was dispatched to a border post along the defensive line between Bulgaria and Turkey. His job was border guard.
I actually kind of like doing reaction gaming videos.
Mostly, it was to make sure nobody left the country during a time of severe restriction of movement under the communist government. His orders were to shoot on sight. No exceptions. One night, he and his best friend Ivan were patrolling the border as usual with their dog. Ivan was a far senior soldier, much larger and stronger than Vasil, with the kind of look only veteran soldiers had. He described the night as still and cold, and the moon shone through the clear sky during the night. There was a light breeze that whistled faintly across the open plains between the two borders. All was well and normal, and their routine patrol was near their end. Much like most days, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and the two men started to make their way back to the camp.
Okay.
They were almost back to base when, all of a sudden, Ivan stopped. He turned his head to the darkness. Do you hear that? Vasil stopped to listen, and his eyes widened as he heard what sounded like singing. The two men listened and listened as the singing continued and seemingly became louder. Vasil stood still, yearning to know who was singing so beautifully. Then, their dog started to growl, softly at first, until it started barking furiously as the singing came
Making a
closer
reaction
and
video
closer.
now.
Ivan grabbed Vasil. Listen to me very carefully, he said. I need you to run back to checkpoint B, get on the radio, and call for reinforcements. Tell them code siren. They'll know what you mean. What? Why? Do as I say. Do you understand? All this over some singing? This isn't the Turks or the Americans. This is much more serious than that. Now go!
I hate ads!
Pain from being on your feet? Dr. Scholl's orthotics provide immediate all-day relief. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
I don't care.
By this time, the singing had become so loud it was almost unnerving, as if the source was as close as a few meters away. Vasil looked around in panic, gripping his rifle in fear and confusion. Vasil started to run. He knew that the checkpoint was less than a kilometer away and that he would make it there in a few minutes if he really ran for it. Behind him, he heard the barking and the growling of their dog change into whimpers and cries, which was followed by bursts of automatic fire that ripped through the night air. The fire sustained until he had finally reached the radio at the checkpoint. Checkpoint B to base. Checkpoint B to base. We have a situation here. Code siren. I repeat, code siren. Requesting immediate reinforcements. Over. Base to checkpoint B. Reinforcements are inbound. What is your status update? Over. As the response came, the gunfire continued, followed by a scream, as if from a young woman in pain. Vasil stood petrified, his hands trembling. I don't know. My comrade is currently engaging. I don't know what's going on. He shouted into the radio, desperately hoping for some help. A cracked response from the radio came. Vasil struggled to make out the words as the gunfire continued on in the distance. Then, a man screamed, and the gunfire stopped. Total silence, as the broken message of the radio became nothing but static. Vasil began to panic, wondering whether to help Ivan or to wait for reinforcements. He stood there and listened carefully, but nothing, only silence. Then suddenly, the singing. The most beautiful sound he's ever heard in his life. Vasil jumped, shouldering his rifle and aiming into the darkness. Frantically, he aimed his rifle in different directions as the singing grew louder and louder. His breathing became faster and disjointed. His heart pounded like a drum. The singing came closer